Haven Gate Control to Human Convoy, present yourselves for inspection and surrender Helion. Failure to comply will void your species' travel privileges. Ambassador Idris Cade didn't look at the screen. Protocol blackout, he said, soft as a prayer. On Kestrel's bridge, Captain Maya Ross flicked two guarded switches. The ship's radiators shuddered, transponders died, and every chatty system on board went monastic. Lanternfish protocol, she murmured. In the Starless, the smartest thing a small creature can do is go dim until it doesn't. 12 civilian hulls drifted toward the luminous ring of the Haven Gate like pilgrims. Behind their painted rust and shipping logos, hidden bays whispered open. Nanoscopic beacons spilled into space, settling into an invisible weave that only Kestrel could see. Adjudicator Forel's sigil pulsed on the comms. Last warning, humans. Maya smiled without teeth. Last chance, Adjudicator. Out beyond the ring, a moon named Helion circled a dull gas giant. On it, children slept in barracks and woke to whistles. Transfer to deeper camps was scheduled within 36 hours. Hold the line, Cade said, feeling the clock start to bite. And make the gate our harbor of glass. Haven Gate looked like a crown fallen sideways, a torus of diamond lattice and radiation-burnished plating, shivering with auroras every time a ship clawed open the metric. Dockmasters liked to say the gate watched everything. Linfan's smile said otherwise. Watchers blink, Kestrel's chief engineer murmured, fingers dancing over an ops board that showed no lights at all. Sable weave away. Outside, sand grain drones rode photon pressure and static fields, unfurling a net within a net. No bigger than bugs, they were dumb alone, brilliant in chorus. Link them to the gate's own flicker, and the lanes between jump vectors drew themselves choke points turned to kill boxes, escape lines to funnels. It was engineering the way a fencer thinks, occupy the space your opponent must step into. Convoy 9, Vector Drift, Ross said. The voice she used at sea was the same one she'd used teaching neighborhood kids bicycle rules. Calm, unarguable. The 12 hulls, a museum of freighters, tow tugs, or scows nudged into a pilgrim's procession. Their manifests were poetry, grain, spare parts, ice. The Combine Coast Guard pings came backboard and bureaucratic. That was the point. Cade stood with his hands behind his back, counting breaths. A month ago he had stood in a refugee canteen pouring soup for the Kestrelites, the miners from Helion who named themselves after the bird because it hunts bigger prey by being quicker. They showed him scraps of paper, ration stamps, children's names, the way grief can be itemized. Diplomacy ends when ledgers start listing bodies. Message from Surface Resistance, Williams called from comms. Zia's cell confirms transfer window 36 hours to lift, 6 shuttles. After that, deep camp. Cade closed his eyes, then opened them on command steel. We pull them before the window closes. Maya turned, meeting him halfway. She had the spacefarer's trick of letting silence do work. If we move early, Forel knows. If Forel knows, he locks the lanes. If he locks the lanes, we bleed trying to brute through a gate. History's not gentle, Cade said. Dunkirk wasn't efficient, either. He didn't add, but we remember it, not the memos that said it was impossible. We commit to rescue. Fold the op around that. Lin exhaled. We can make the timetable if we treat Haven like a metronome. Every beat we steal from the gate goes to Helion. She drew arcs on the invisible board, mapping how the gate cycled its maintenance shutters, where the Combine's own patrols left microgaps because their doctrine assumed fear. Fear left shadows. Engineers made lanterns. Lanternfish Protocol, Phase 2, Maya said. Light only where they're already blind. The convoy slid toward assigned berths. Combine inspectors in lacquered armor began to walk Gant rise 5 decks above them, heads canted in that posture of species who expect to be obeyed. Kestrel didn't ping at all. She wove nothing vectors through the gate's power pulse, she joined the ring's heartbeat like a fish taking the tide. Somewhere, an algorithm that counted up taxes to be paid decided Kestrel didn't exist. Adjudicator Forel, Cade transmitted on a narrow band the Combine believed unimportant. We acknowledge your warning. We will not surrender Helion. He let the sentence sit like a pebble thrown into a still pond. The ripples were small, then larger, then eddies met eddies and strange currents formed far from the splash. Ambassador, Maya said, you just told them we're here to fight. I told them we're here to keep a promise. He nodded toward the planet screen, Helion's shadowed ridges and sodium lamps. Children don't evacuate themselves. He half expected a pang of doubt, but what came instead was clearance. Every step they'd taken the last 20 years, foundries hollowed into Trojans, ship frames grown like coral under Kuiper ice, old freighters refitted with armored hearts had been rehearsals for the sentence. The Black Armada had trained under silence, now the silence was tactics, not shame. Lin tapped a key and 1,000 nearly nothing nodes hummed a note only Kestrel could hear. The gate's own aura masked them. The convoy's own thermal wash hid Kestrel's cont rail. Harbor of glass, Lin said. If Forel tries to run or reinforce, he'll slice himself. Maya looked to Cade. He gave her the smallest nod. Then let's set the table, she said. And make sure the guests arrive exactly when we need them most. Boarding a courier node sounded glamorous in recruiting vids. In truth, it felt like burglary in a neighbor's house where the floorboards complain and the dog knows you smell wrong. The Combine courier hub hung off Haven like a barnacle, tiny compared to the gate, important enough to warrant 2 corvettes and a squad of lacquered helmets. Maya sent 6 vacuum black skins, oxygen rebreathers that made no fog, Mag Soleil's kiss to the courier's hull like apologies. The Kestrel herself became a shadow, then the absence of a shadow, nuzzling into a blind spot Lin had charted over a week of quiet stares at the ring's power hum. Remember, Maya said, voice low. We're here for the lattice keys, not trophies. Quiet is mission. Mission is rescue. Zia the Helion miner turned insurgent rode in with them. She'd welded things in dark tunnels and hauled carts heavier than her bad memories, and nothing in the Combine's posture made her flinch. Doors standard trade, she whispered, hands already pulling a portable splice from her belt. They never think we learn. They forget we built half the stuff they stole. Inside, the courier smelled like old metal and citrus, the way bureaucracies do. The node's heart was a quantum lattice bank, boxes within boxes, humming with entangled pairs that told gates where and when to open. Lattice a gate and you own the river. Steal a lattice and you own the locks. 2 minutes, Lynn counted over the link, juggling a dozen distractions at once, a microflare on the far side of the ring to make a patrol look left, a timing skew in a gantry camera that twitched every third frame, a hummingbird drone flicking a security laser into thinking it had already seen this corridor. Deception in war, the old Midway lesson went, isn't just about the lie, it's about the 1,000 true things you arrange so the lie doesn't have to work hard. They lifted the lattice. It was heavier than it looked, and that was good. Weight means physics, physics means predictability. Zia grinned despite herself. Feels like a paycheck. On their way out, the dog barked. Not a dog, but the Combine's version, a pressure sensor in a panel that should have been dead, a maintenance junior who'd done his job too well. The corridor lights hiccuped. Far away, someone's console rang. Trip, William said in Maya's ear. We have a trip. Options opened and closed like gills. If they ran, corvettes would wake and point ugly questions at the convoy berths. If they stayed, the node would lock itself and the lattice would be another dead shrine to an almost. Give me 30 seconds, said Alvarez, one of Maya's 6, already turning back toward the panel. I can build them a ghost. Negative, Maya said, but Alvarez had cut his mic. He laid a palm flat, the way electricians do to feel a circuit's mood, then slid a slug of printed logic into a port never meant for anything clever. The sensor saw what it had always seen. The alarm kept ringing in a loop past its own loop, a snake taught to eat its tail. Ghost up, Zia said, voice tight. Al, Maya started. I'm 2 turns behind you, he lied cheerfully. Ride safe. They rode. The kestrel kissed them back into her belly and became, again, less than empty. Alvarez did not make the second turn. The lacquered helmets poured into the wrong room at the right time and spent 10 minutes arresting a snapshot of themselves, then another 10 assigning blame. Bureaucracies are reliable enemies. On the bridge, Maya stood very still and counted to 5 twice. He knew the risk, Lynn said, kinder than any logic. Cade touched the lattice box like a reliquary. Make his gamble count. They did. With the lattice keys, Kestrel taught the gate new manners. A corridor 3 jumps out flickered yellow on Combine Maps quarantine, the advisory read in Forel's clipped tone. Someone had forged his sigil with yawning precision. Rumors flowed along comms faster than orders, fungal bloom in cryo casks, spores that ate grab plates, station medics quietly told to burn everything that sneezed. It wasn't pretty work, but it was civil compared to the Combine's habit of making examples. And it meant a relief squadron that should have left an hour ago sat polishing gun barrels and taking their temperatures. Cade stared at the scrolling reaction threads and thought of the Navajo code talkers and the Warsaw radio, of voices used to save lives, of lies told to prevent worse truths. Ethics isn't a museum plaque. It's a tool with a sharp edge that cuts the hand that hesitates. Window opens, Lynn said, and the ship exhaled as one. Helion shuttles in 6 hours. Every beat now belongs to us. Maya rested her hand on the captain's chair. Then we're done stealing keys, she said. Time to unlock a door. The Combine came in proud and textbook. 3 cruisers in a wedge, 6 destroyers fanned to flank, corvettes like fleas nipping at the edges. Doctrine said, bracket the target, pour fire into the shields, smother with mass. Doctrine had been written by people who never had to jump a fence with a sleeping child in their arms. Warden Sector Patrol, this is Adjudicator Forel, the broadcast cut in. His voice tried for board and landed on brittle. Engage the human imposters and seize gate control. Maya watched vectors the way a chess player studies roads. The gate's maintenance shutter cycled 1, 2, 3, and Lynn's sable weave hummed on the 4th, fishing the ring's own field for power. Kestrel showed herself just enough, a clean transponder blink, a heat signature like a freighter's engine taking tea. The wedge adjusted, noses lifting a degree. Good. Aim them where the glass is. Point defense hot, Grant said. On his boards, a cloud hatched from Kestrel's shadow palm-sized defense darts, each a nervous system around a coil. If their corvettes think they can sandblast us, they're in for a dentist's visit. Yuan, Lin added. The room thinned and sharpened. Screens shaved off unnecessary color. Music from someone's pocket cut mid-bar. Field coils went from nap to stretch, and everything in the ship felt suddenly like a second language that everyone spoke perfectly. Bring the trident up, Maya said. The kinetic trident wasn't 3 guns. It was 3 answers to the same question, timed like notes in a chord. Most shields in the Combine ran on phased resonance. They drank energy at one frequency and spat it back as heat at another. Fighters with lasers died, ships with plasma burned themselves polite on contact. Fine if your enemy believes in beams. Less fine if your enemy believes in rocks. Trident staged, Lin said, voice even. Lead slug, dense tungsten. Second slug, ceramic sabo with poor conduction. Third, needle packet to rake control nodes. Spacing, set. Maya let the cruisers close until their formation looked perfect on a textbook's glossy page. She remembered a history teacher's hand on a projector, tapping the midway slide, the moment 3 carriers were all caught refueling on the same beat because Doctrine said you could refuel faster if you refueled together. Doctrine makes beautiful graves, the teacher had said, and been fired a year later for calling certain admirals what they were. Fire, Maya said. The first slug hit at 70% of C fast enough that no human eye could have watched it arrive, slow enough that it still felt like a thing thrown, not a function summoned. The cruiser's shield caught it like a matador's cape and staggered. The second slug, a breath behind, didn't ask permission. Ceramic isn't what shields expect. It went through the hole the first slug made and kept going, punching a corridor of low pressure and flying chairs through decks where men and women who'd been promised an easy arrest clutched rails. The third package arrived like a filing cabinet overturned in an office, messy, boring, devastating. Needle sleeted across 100 meters of hull, scratching everything a computer needed to feel itself. Screens went dark. A bridge became helplessly quiet. The wedge faltered as one of its teeth forgot what teeth do. Glass knives, Grant said. Dozens of slender projectiles slipped free, noses smart enough to taste the different metals of a turret and gentle enough to cut cables instead of arteries. They spiked weapon housings and sheared couplings, left gunners alive and guns asleep. A destroyer tried to swing for a rake and got its elbow untied. Corvettes. Williams barked. The fleas swarmed. Point defense darts woke like hornets. Their coils spat slivers of particle light thin as sewing needles. Corvettes aren't brave, corvettes are cheap. They learned what cheap buys you. EU is painting their jump bands, Lynn reported, satisfaction hidden and real. They spool, I yank. Anyone tries to run, they lose their shoes. Maya took Kestrel straight into the wedge, because the only place you can't be flanked is at the center of someone else's plan. On the tactical, their formation went from sculpture to spilled marbles. Captains chose not to collide, which meant they also chose not to shoot. The ring's own geometry worked for her. Every vector they could flee to was a corridor sheet already laced with glass. An open channel bleated. Forel tried for authority and hid panic. Human captain, stand down or, Maya said, and cut him off with a public broadcast instead. She put Helion on the screen, barracks, fences, tiny hands pushing at chain links made from somebody's pension, a foreman's baton tapping his own thigh. She didn't add narration. She didn't need to. The Sarai, listening from their water priory ships, keened. Their culture stored memory in chorus. Now it had something clear to sing. Guns down, Maya ordered. Priority is disarm. We're not here to rack up hulls, we're here to pry open cages. The last cruiser made a run for the gate's bright center. Lynn's weave sang at a pitch that made Cade's teeth ache. The cruiser's drive hiccuped, then fell into the precise sort of stall an engineer can fix with a lecture and a wrench. In battle, that stall is a soul-deep nightmare. The cruiser drifted into the harbor of glass and shaved away its own engine bells on edges it couldn't see. Field, Lynn said softly. The weave powered down to a legal whisper. On paper, nothing had happened. Lane's clear, Williams called. Helion window opens in 4 hours. Maya stared at where the cruiser had been. She felt for Alvarez's absence and found it again, like a bruise she kept forgetting then remembering. Open a corridor, she said. And bring the shuttles home. The first Helion shuttle staggered like a drunk leaving a fight. Scorch marks on both flanks, one landing leg half extended, pilot breathing in little dog pant halls. Zia's voice came over the open line, hoarse and laughing. Told you we could steal their lunch. Kestrel approach has you, Grant said, guiding with a steady drummer's beat. Tethers kissed. Doc clamps sighed. When the hatch popped, a smell rolled out that every soldier learns to name, fear, sweat and sick metal and the iron of courage bitten clean through. Kids blinked at the brightness, hands up against a light that didn't order them. A boy with a shaved head pointed at the painted kestrel on the bulkhead and said, solemn, bird. Cade's throat did something he'd promised it wouldn't. He swallowed, stepped aside to let medics and water through first. Welcome aboard, he said, and meant the whole species. Broadcast across the ring, the words of the Lantern Oath appeared in a dozen languages. Any people under Combine yoke who seek exit will be escorted. We do not ask tribute. We ask your voice when the time comes. It wasn't poetry, but it carried. The Sarai answered with a chord that vibrated the screens, their harmonics sinking into bone. A freighter out beyond the gate blinked its running lights in a pattern sailors have used for 5,000 years to say, "We see you." Forel responded the way systems do when their rules are questioned. He escalated. The Warden array woke over the gas giant like a sea monster turning, plates unfolding, field veins blossoming. Where gates are locks, wardens are walls. The Combine had built them as monuments to inevitability, proof that anyone who could lift off must eventually kneel. Array charging, Lynn said, jaw clenched. They'll try to cap the whole sector, make space itself viscous. We'll crawl. They'll swat. Show them we own more than ships, Maya said. Wake a foundry. Cade looked over, not surprised, just measuring the moment. You're sure? Black Armada never meant just dreadnoughts, Maya answered. It's an ecosystem. Acquire. Time to bring another voice. In the Trojans of a fat brown planet 3 systems distant, a hollowed asteroid opened like a flower under snow. Inside, frames slept in the dark keel girders, coil housings, the bones of ships that would be named by children not yet born. Machines that had pretended to be ore crushers remembered they were mouths. They ate stockpiles like hungry saints and exhaled hull. On the belt near Haven, a refinery that had filed taxes for 20 years as blue brindle minerals rotated 90 degrees and revealed a launch bay the length of a city street. 5 spined silhouettes slid out, towing drums that glowed like bank suns. The drums were power. The silhouettes were patience made visible. Lynn watched the feeds with a mechanic's love. Defiance nodes online, she reported. They're not ships, they're verbs. Then conjugate, Maya said. They did. Kestrel took a position between the Warden array and the shuttles running hot from Helion, presenting herself like a wall and being, in truth, a window. The Defiance nodes laced the local vacuum with counterfields, knitting soft places the array's hard hand slipped on. Power that should have made killing light pooled and ran off like rain on oiled cloth. Array at 70%, Williams warned. They'll start swinging. They already did, Cade said, nodding toward the second shuttle coming in, manned by people who had learned to fly last week because the alternative was a number carved on a wall. Open line, Maya said, and Forel's face arrived, high cheek ridges flushed a furious violet. Adjudicator, she said, the oath stands. You escalate, we escalate rescue. It's asymmetric by design. Humans, Forel hissed, have mistaken cunning for civilization. Civilization, Cade said, is how you treat the powerless when no one can make you. The array slapped. Space groaned the way a concert hall does when a note is forced through it wrong. Kestrel's absorbers drank, then choked, alarms flickered and died as Lynn prioritized systems like a battlefield surgeon. A tremor rolled through the decks. Grant grabbed a railing, knuckles white. A tech started praying in Spanish in the corner, quietly, competently. Report, Maya said. Field cutlass hot, Lynn answered. We can hold if we shunt. But if we shunt, we darken the weave for 11 minutes. Which means no more glass, Williams said. Forel runs, or worse, rams. Maya tasted copper that wasn't there. She thought about Alvarez's open channel cutting off mid-joke, about a history teacher's projector hand, about a boy saying bird. The virtues philosophers call cardinal don't help you pick targets. They help you keep the target you chose. Shunt, she ordered. Protect the shuttles and the weak lanes. If Forel runs, we hunt later. If Forel rams, we take the hit. The weave dimmed. The array swung again and met a different sky. Sarai ship slipped in close, laying down harmonics that made the array's frequency wobble, the way a choir can beat a siren back into pitch. On the far side of the ring, a third shuttle leapt, hands in its cockpit shaking, and made the corridor with a cough and a sob. 4 minutes on relight, Lynn said. And, Mark. One defiance note is kissing the array's girders. Not hostile. Intimate. Cade smiled despite himself. Let's teach their wall to be a door. On a maintenance catwalk the Combine had not bothered to map because it had not paid its contractors enough to care, clamps bit down. Tools designed for mining began a different career in midlife as boarding gear. Sable drones, big siblings to the sand grains, crawled like ivy, tasting power lines. The Warden array didn't know how to feel about being repurposed. Most tyrants don't. Lantern Oath is trending on open bands, Williams reported, almost laughing. Freighters are blinking it at one another. Somebody's painted it on a Corvette. Who? Maya asked. Their Corvette, he said, wonder threading the word. Maya closed her eyes for a single breath, opened them on the next beat. Then we're not the only lanterns. Outside, the foundries kept waking. In cold caves where men and women had pretended to make spare parts, engines whispered their first names. The Black Armada wasn't a fleet. It was a promise taught to metal. It was the knowledge that a shuttle is sometimes a battleship, and a battleship is sometimes a bridge. Helion Shuttle 4 on approach, Grant said, voice steady now. Let's bring them home. And hold the window, Maya replied, as the array's shadow loomed and the Oath's light refused to go out. The relay nexus hid behind Haven's bright shoulder like a pickpocket working a parade. Officially it was Comlog Node 7A, a stack of dishes and cooled racks that translated 1,000 languages into the Combine's sanctioned channels. Unofficially it was where messages got harmonized into truths that made taxes easier and rebellions statistically invisible. We take the relay, we take the story, Cade said. Forel commands hardware. His empire runs on narrative. Maya nodded. Boarding rules stand minimal force. We're after the codec, the routing keys, and anything with a ledger. Lynn spun a schematic into the air. Node 7A runs a verification loop every 46 seconds. We slide between pulses, write our signature into their checksum, and become maintenance. After that it's janitor time. The janitors wore plain gray suits, patches reading blue brindle systems in 5 alphabets. Zia came again, helmet tucked under her arm like a long overdue apology. They crossed over on a tether line while Kestrel glided into an eddy Lynn had dug out of radiation and math. Inside, the relay sounded like winter air too quiet, machines breathing to themselves. A Combine clerk in lacquered blue raised one hand without looking up. Maintenance window is Thursday. Today is Thursday, Zia said in a tone that made even bureaucracies blink. The clerk looked at his calendar. It was Thursday where the calendar thought it mattered. They walked past empty chairs still warm. The code vault smelled like a server room anywhere, ozone, cautious hope, technician coffee. Alvarez should have been here to grin at the wiring decisions and call them adorable mistakes. Zia put a hand flat to the metal and nodded once before working. Comlog codec, Lynn whispered in Cade's ear via bone mic. Got it? It's not encryption so much as etiquette. They make dissent sound rude at the machine level. Rude can be fixed, Cade said. Truth is louder. They lifted more than keys. Databanks coughed up purchase orders written in careful language, allocation to labor redirection, invoices for shock collars line-itemed as compliance loops, signatures that matched Council Aid's charity foundations. The Combine had always called its theft a curriculum. Here were the lesson plans. Earth wants the array flattened, Williams reported from the bridge, voice thin. Home defense is patching in on a priority thread. The phrase decisive demonstration appears 3 times. Maya read the summary, then looked at Helion Shuttle 3 on final approach, 22 souls aboard, one of them a toddler whose voice came through in hiccup sobs because someone forgot to mute. You tell home we're busy with a decisive demonstration of rescue, she said. Copy them the ledger pack. When they see the line items, they'll brief senators who have grandkids. Cade hesitated. Power is a habit, war makes it addictive. We send this, he said quietly, we commit to the argument being public. No sealed indictments. No quiet deals. Pentagon Papers changed a country, Maya answered. We're not the first to learn truth is a weapon. We are the first to aim it with a choir. The Sarai supplied the choir. On open bands, their chorus braided with human plain speech, translating the ledger into song. A clause becomes a drum beat. A forged signature becomes a plaintive counter melody. You can't hum an atrocity into comfort. Listeners aboard or scows and customs cutters turned the volume up and, for the first time, found they had something in common that wasn't fear. Forel broke in, sputtering legalisms. Unauthorized alteration of comlog channels is an act of clarity, Cade said, and cut the line. Security finally arrived at the relay. 2 officers with stun batons and the look of men who had practiced swagger in duty mirrors. Zia held up a laminate. It was very boring. We're re-indexing checksum, she said. Field variance. You're out of sequence. The officers looked at each other, then at her, then at the laminate. The thing about empires is that most of their teeth are paperwork. Proceed, one said, relieved to have someone else carrying the weight of decision. Back aboard Kestrel, the ledger roared across channels. Neutral captains delayed departure. A courier from the Alteran Cooperative blinked 3 times and said, bright with scandal, we did not know, which is what polite species say when the mirror stays on too long. Array is spiking again, Lynn warned. They're angry. Angry tells me they read us, Maya replied. Now we teach them to listen. She opened a general broadcast, not a thread, a door. To the small ships, if you are carrying people who did not choose their destination, light your running lamps in triple flashes. We will escort. To any officer under orders to strike refugee craft, there is a place beside you in history for disobeying. Silence answered for a long beat. Then out beyond the ring, a combined corvette blinked in triples. Then another. Not many but enough for the oath to have company. Relay backdoor installed, Lynn said. We can sidestep the Combine's loudest lies for a while. Then put our truth on loop, Cade said. And light our lanterns. We've got a wall to climb without burning it down. The warden array stopped pretending it was a monument and started acting like a machine made to humble skies. Field veins locked into a geometry that made mathematicians wince, then shone. Gravity bent where it should have shrugged. Space went from sea to syrup. Brace, Maya said, but Kestrel had already done so, her absorbers widening their throats, her spine taking a set like a wrestler's stance. The blow arrived late and everywhere at once. Light stepped off the brightness scale and came back with a new vocabulary. Couplers are redlining, Lynn reported, clipped. Dumping heat into the shadow tanks. We can survive 2 more of those if we jettison the left absorber core. What does that get us? Maya asked. Shield for the corridor. A chance for shuttles 5 and 6. What does it cost? Left side goes dumb for a while. We'll be lopsided. And Lynn swallowed. Blue Brindle Foundry in the belt will become a lighthouse. They'll see it. They'll hit it. Families are there. Cade's jaw tightened. The foundry had a school corner with puzzles taped to walls and a whiteboard where kids had drawn what they thought a spaceship looked like. Most had drawn a bird. Some had drawn a house that could fly. Dump, Maya said, voice steady because that's what voices do when hands must not shake. Shuttle 5 and 6 first. Then we warn Brindle and we move heaven. They vented the absorber. The core left the ship like a heart removed to save a patient, glowing, then dimming into useless bravery. The corridor brightened as Kestrel's shadow grew longer and kinder. Shuttle 5 came in with a pilot whose lips moved the whole way, counting the names of the people behind her seat. Shuttle 6 kissed clamps hard enough to make Grant swear and then laugh at the same time. Array winding again, Williams shouted. It's going to reach across the belt. Warn Brindle, Maya said. Zia was already on the line. We're moving the kids, she shouted over clanging and the vivid poetry of Foreman at speed. We can't outrun a sky smack. You can outrun its assumptions, Lynn said. Cut the ore stacks loose. Bleed heat into them. Make yourselves ugly and uninteresting. The array struck. It did not find its target where it thought it lived. It found barrels of ore playing at being hot and noble. It found a foundry that had learned to act like a field of trash. Still the curve of force caught one corner of the station and folded it like a book. The school corner. The whiteboard. A hush dropped inside Kestrel. Then a sound, small and real, a child on Shuttle 6 asking if the bird on the wall would still be there when they came back. No one answered. No one lied. Casualty report, Cade said, and Lynn brought it up with a tenderness that made numbers hurt. Names slid by, beside them, notes fitter, cook, grandmother, good at cards, violin, made the best soup in the belt. Maya braced her hands on the rail until the ship's steel remembered it could be more than a hull, it could be a promise. We carry them, she said, not metaphor, order. Every name. Every face. Put them on the relay. Let the galaxy hold them with us. The feed ran. The Sarai braided the names into harmony, their chorus lifting grief into something that could be borne without breaking. On far ships, Altirans clicked their palps in respect. On one combined patrol craft, a junior officer took his helmet off and did not put it on again. Home defense again, Williams said, voice thick. They saw the ledger. Senators are crying on camera. They want to send us permission to be terrible. Tell them, Cade said, we already decided what we won't be. He thought of virtue ethics, of the Stoics who talked about choosing the internal good over the external win, of how proportionality in just war isn't a math problem, it's a mirror. There are victories you spend forever paying for. There are losses you build cities on. Array is spooling to full, Lynn warned. Our weave relight in 3. Defiance nodes are kissing girders, if we time this. We don't kill it, Maya said. We take it. Walls are just doors with rude hinges. Grant barked a laugh that tasted like salt. Copy. Bringing the knives you can write with. The memorial rolled on. Alvarez's name came up. Someone had found a clip of him on mess night, telling a joke badly and making everyone laugh anyway. Maya didn't look away. That's how you keep people. Not as statues but as moments the living can sit beside. Kestrel, Zia said from the Brindle wreck, voice gone hoarse and iron, we're alive enough to be angry. Tell me we make that count. We will, Maya said. We'll make it count by refusing to be what hit you. Then let's steal their wall, Zia answered, savage joy sparking through the ash. Make them live in a world where doors open. The Warden Array did not expect to be wooed. It had been built to dominate, calibrated to flatten objection into compliance. But it was, in the end, engineering field geometries and switching thresholds, phase-locked loops and control nodes with supervisors who liked coffee. Engineering can love a better argument. Defiance nodes are in position along vein C through G, Lynn said. Her hands flew without hurry. Their shield harmonics wobble at 313 Hz when they swing hard. The Sarai can sing at 311 and 315 and make a beating pattern that opens and closes a window. Glass knives ready, Grant said. His board showed a bouquet of slender darts with gentle tips, built to write in metal, not tear it up. Boarding teams set, Zia added. Blue Brindle survivors wore matte black now, but someone had chalked birds on their sleeves. We dance when the door clicks. You has the jump bands, Williams chimed in. Forel runs, he leaves a shoe. Maya looked at Cade. He met her gaze with the same refusal they'd used on every bad option. Begin, she said. The Sarai sang first. It wasn't music as humans measure it, it was pressure made kind, a corralling of resonance that made the array's fields shiver in sympathy. On instrument readouts, lines that had been proudly straight learned a new humility. Beats formed where none should be soft places between the hard. Window opening, Lynn whispered. Trident 1 no kill, just knock. The first kinetic slug didn't aim for engines or crew spaces. It took a shallow bite out of a vane's mount and left behind a small complaint in the metal. The second carried a payload that foamed into conductive lace, bridging contacts that preferred aloofness. The third was a stitched packet of probes that latched onto control lines and said, sweetly, "We speak firmware." "Glass knives out," Grant said, and the darts drew cursive across the array's skin, snipping the lines that told it to swat at anything that moved and leaving untouched the ones that kept people breathing air at the other end of the corridor. A turret shuddered as its appetite was unhooked. A capacitor, hungry for discharge, forgot who it thought it was. Boarding, Zia breathed, and her team crossed vacuum in arcs that looked like handwriting. They hit a catwalk the Combine hadn't painted since the commissioning ceremony and moved with the grace of people who had learned to stay alive in tunnels without asking permission. A lacquered guard raised a rifle and then lowered it, hearing the Sarais chord and recognizing a better order. "Control chamber ahead," Zia said. 3 techs, 1 supervisor, a coffee cup that's been judged by 1,000 shifts. "Speak to them," Cade said. "There are fights you win by making the other person hear their own oath." Zia did. She told them about the school corner. She named the whiteboard. She listed the names as the Sarai sang them. She did not ask for surrender. She asked what kind of tech wants to be when they grow up. The supervisor took off his badge, set it gently beside the cup, and typed a code she had promised never to share. Locks opened. The room sighed like a body putting down a burden. "Array is ours at 40%, Lynn reported, astonished and serene. "We can refuse orders. We can re-aim. We can." She looked up, eyes bright. "We can shelter." Maya exhaled for what felt like the first time since Helion. "Turn the wall," she said. "Point its bruise at the places it used to hit. Make a roof. Sanctuary corridor. Refuge gets a shield." The fields swung. Space softened where it should have been hard, hard where it had been a trap. A convoy of freighters blinking the lantern oath slid under a canopy no one had ever thought to erect for them. A Combine destroyer powering weapons found its batteries politely grounded. Its captain swore, then laughed, then ordered all hands to stand down because sometimes survival is a revelation. "Forel is trying to cut power at the root," Williams warned. "He's opened a kill breaker." "Catch it," Lynn said, and her drones did, their little teeth holding the switch in a maybe. "We can't keep that forever." "Long enough," Cade said. "Broadcast." They did. Across the sector, screens filled with the array's new job description. Sanctuary protocols scrolled where strike patterns had been. A map of the corridor painted itself in calm colors. A sentence appeared, simple as a sign over a school door: "Walls are for weather, not for people." On Forel's flagship, the adjudicator stared at readouts that had turned against him. He had a final play. Bullies always do: smash the board, call that a win. "Ramming course," he ordered, voice gone low and ugly. "We'll make a martyr out of their bridge." He aimed for Kestrel. "You has him," Williams said. "But he's heavy." "Meet him with open hands," Maya said. "Grant disable, don't kill." They laced the flagship's bow with glass knives, snipping control lines that fed the helm's hunger. The Sarai lifted a high note that made a row of relays in Forel's spine pity themselves into caution. The flagship shuddered, shed speed, and slid into the corridor where even anger learned to be quiet. Zia came up on an internal cam, grinning through grime. "Array control confirms," she said. "We can host refugees by the thousand. We have a wall that wants to be a roof." "Hold it," Maya said. "And get ready. When you turn a wall, those who loved its old job come calling." They came, but not in the way Forel had promised. Reinforcements jumped to the edge of the sector, read the relay, saw the wall sheltering the weak, listened to a chorus of names, and mislaid their appetite for heroics. A destroyer captain asked, on an open band, "If the wall is a roof, what are we?" Another answered, "Neighbors," and did not lower his voice. "Council session in emergency," Williams said. "The Altirans are calling it a norms crisis. The word sanctuary is doing numbers." Cade took the main channel and set the ledger beside the future. "Adjudicator Forel," he said. Forel's face appeared, a man watching the tide he ordered to turn begin to write different math. "Humanity offers terms." Forel bared his teeth. He had fewer moves now and each one cost more. "You have no standing." "That's history speaking," Cade said. "Listen closely. First, immediate emancipation of all combine labor redirection populations. Second, recognition of Helian autonomy and safe corridor rights for allied species. Third, amnesty for officers who refuse unlawful orders to harm non-combatants. Fourth, the Lanternfish Accord sanctuary zones administered by a coalition, not a council of buyers. And if I refuse?" "Then you discover," Maya said, calm as a level, "that our restraint is not your leverage. We won't burn cities. We will unmake the tools you use to hurt them and hand those tools to those you hurt." Silence, then an unexpected voice, the supervisor from the array control room. She leaned into Forel's camera, badge still on the table. "Adjudicator, I will testify. I will sing. The ledger is not a lie." Forel's eyes flicked, calculating who at court would still take his calls. He found the space where power had already left the building. He did not confess. Men like him rarely do. He did the only thing left. He tried to make himself smaller than the moment. "I lack the authority," he said, which was true now. Authority had walked out. The council voted, terrified of being on the wrong page of a new book. The Sarai signed the accord first, humming gratitude like rain. A dozen minor species followed, their ships blinking the oath from convoy to convoy. Even among the combine, captains found the pleasure of refusing cruelty in public. A traitor is just a person whose loyalty moved to something worth serving. "Array is stable under our protocols," Lin reported. "We can keep the corridor open indefinitely if we feed it with defiance nodes. The foundries can grow them. The belt will sing them awake." Maya nodded. On the memorial wall, new names stopped appearing. "That is what victory looks like when you keep your promises." A pause in the list. A shuttle arrived from Blue Brindle with something wrapped in cloth. Zia carried it to the bridge like a king's gift and set it on the rail. The whiteboard, scorched at the corner, wiped clean except for one drawing that he'd had seared into permanence, a bird with ridiculous wings. "For your mess," she said, and Maya's laugh came out sideways into a breath that hurt and healed. Home Defense sent a second message, shorter than the first. "You were right. Don't come home yet. They need you there." It didn't feel like permission. It felt like joining. Cade drafted the Accord's final article. It had no poetry, not outwardly. It boiled to a paragraph about a duty older than flags. A wall is for weather, not for people. A fleet is for rescue, not for crowds. A story is for truth, not for purchase. Maya took the array's broadcast one last time and looked straight into species she would never meet. "We hunted you because you hunted us," she said, "and we stopped where your children stand. That is our doctrine. If you want a different sky, we have room." On the flagship, now anchored like a chastened dog, Forel sat alone. He would be tried by people who had learned to look at their own ledgers. He would rewrite his memory until he could sleep. The wall he built would shelter those who would never know his name. That was a better punishment than he deserved, which is how civilization works on its best days. The Black Armada did not reveal a parade of dreadnoughts. It revealed foundries blooming, conveyor belts that moved not shells but homes, schoolrooms pressurized inside shipping containers, libraries that arrived before the politicians. The Armada was not a fleet. It was a sentence made out of metal: "We will not kneel, and we will not make you." In the quiet after the declarations, Maya found a letter in the ship's dead drop, time-stamped weeks ago. Alvarez's handwriting, crooked, loud on paper. "If I don't make it, Captain, make sure the kids get out and make sure the wall learns new work. I don't like funerals, so have one that feeds people. P.S. Fix that squeak on deck C, it's haunted." They held the funeral in the mess with soups labeled for the person who taught the recipe. The Sarai sang. The squeak on deck C stopped. Or maybe it learned better timing. "Kestrel," Grant said, as the array's light made a roof where there had been a fist, "orders." Maya looked at the corridor and the small ships lining up like hopeful commas in a long sentence finally allowed to finish. "We escort," she said. "We build. We hunt only those who hunt. And when someone expects a shuttle." Cade smiled, tired and true. "We bring a lantern." They lit them. The gate did not mind. The sky learned a better shape.